Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Aina binti Hamdan and I will be presenting to you about my final year project, which is utilization of Honeydew melon, Cucumis Melo L Rin powder to partly substituting wheat flour in cookies. This is the outline presentation. Fruit wastage such as seeds, skin, and rain cause a lot of waste in industrial or household activities despite its biological active compounds such as carotenoids, vitamins, and polyphenols. Honeydew melon contain pectin and carbohydrates, which is capable to bind heavy metals from aqueous solution. Meanwhile, wheat flour is one of the major components in baked items as it provides structure to baked items, such as in pastries. It uses low protein flour ranging from 8 to 9% to provide softer texture, and for breads, it uses high protein flour, which is 12% to 15%. Wheat flour usually associated with celiac disease, and the supply of wheat flour is decreasing due to high demand and current war situation between Ukraine and Russia. Russia is the biggest wheat flour exporter, as well as India, which is one of the most countries that exports wheat flour, stopped exporting it as the demand at the country itself is too high, as bread is one of their staple foods. For cookies, it is known as widely consumed as go-to snack, classified under ready-to-eat convenient food for its long shelf life. Cookies are rich in carbohydrates, but some studies found that it lacks in other nutritional components such as minerals, vitamins, and dietary fibers. The problem statement of this study is the consumption of fruits and vegetables had caused a lot of waste, a significant source of bioactive compounds found in fruits and vegetables wastage. It also may trigger allergic reactions to patients who are sensitive to wheat flour, and also the supply of wheat flour is decreasing these days. And the significance of study is an effort to reduce the food plant wastage by turning honeydew melon into powder to partially replacing wheat flour. Honeydew melon powder as alternative to those who are sensitive to wheat, which is 0.5 to 1% adult population worldwide who are sensitive to wheat. And next is promote this alternative wheat flour substitution to small, medium enterprises that involve big products. And lastly, to reduce the inflation towards the flour market price. Objectives of this study were to produce alternative flour, which is honeydew melon powder, to partly substitute wheat flour. Next is to determine the physical properties of honeydew melon powder in terms of moisture content, ash content, falling number, and gluten wash, and chemical properties of honeydew melon powder in terms of protein content, total antioxidant, and total phenolic content. And lastly is to analyze cookies that have been substituted with different percentage of honeydew melon powder, which ranging from 10% to 30%, with control cookies, which is 100% wheat in terms of texture and sensorial analysis. For the literature review, honeydew melon is a type of fruit from Cucurbitaceae family, which has a long trailing vines, round stems, and the fruit is multi-coupled berry, which is epigynous. It is the same family as watermelon, pumpkin, and cucumber. In the servings of a honeydew melon, it contains 60 calories, which have 1 gram of protein, 14 gram of sugar, 2 gram of dietary fibers, and a little fat. It is also high in minerals such as potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, and iron and zinc. It is grown in greenhouse due to the environmental requirements, as all cucurbits are sensitive to temperature changes, with the optimum environment between 22 to 30 degrees Celsius. And soil is between 20 to 35 degrees Celsius. The value of antioxidant activity in honeydew melons, peel, flesh, and seed extracts were 91.73%, 66.36%, 48.55% respectively. For honeydew melon is enriched with non-essential amino acids such as citrulline, pectin, and alpha-cellulose, which provide rigidity and resistance to the fruits. It also plays a major role in treating metal-laden groundwater, which huge amount of the rain are readily obtained to be used as bioabsorbent. Honeydew melon compose 18 to 20% of its whole fruits. The amount of antioxidant found in honeydew melon is 12.53%. Meanwhile, for wheat flour, it is composed of starch and other important components such as protein, carbohydrates, and minerals. The presence of glutenine and gliadin is able to form gluten network, which aids in elasticity and extensibility of the dough. In bread and biscuits, the viscoelastic properties allows dough to expand and gas retention to occur, which cause soft texture and add volume to the products. Meanwhile, for the health-related problems from wheat flour consumption, it is related to chronic inflammatory that affects gastrointestinal tract, specifically on small intestine and jejunum, which is called as celiac disease. Wheat also can cause allergic, which are commonly associated with hypersensitive to proteins and usually associated with production of specific antibody, which is immunoglobulin E. So the last part for literature review is for cookies, which is food that have crunchy and crumbly texture and giving a delicate bite, but it may vary depending on the formula. The harder the cookies, the lower the sugar level in the cookies. The highest acceptable substitution in the cookies from the previous studies were up to 30% only, and high level of substitution of fruit byproducts powder could affect the texture and sensory results of the cookies and enhance the total phenolic content and antioxidant of the cookies, stated by Siti Raihana Shafi'i 2021. For materials and methodology, then Honeydew melon were used. It is cut and washed, and then it was dried in an air oven at 60 degrees Celsius for 3 days. Once it is completely dry, it was ground by using electric grinder and sieved through mesh size 60. Then the powder will be packed in Ziploc bags and stored at room temperature. For flour analysis, there are 9 analyses that has been done to wheat flour and also honeydew melon powder, which is moisture content, ash content, protein content, which is Jeddah method, falling number, gluten washing test, oil absorption capacity, water absorption capacity, total phenolic content, which is Follies-Yokata reagent, and lastly is antioxidant, which is DPPH assay. For the formulation of the cookies, there are 4 formulations, which is control with 100% wheat flour, formulation 1 with 10% substitution, formulation 2 with 20% substitution, and lastly formulation 3, which is 30% substitution. The cookies will be analyzed by two analysis, which is sensory analysis and texture analyzer. For texture analysis, it is done to hardness, springiness, crunchiness, and also chewiness. Meanwhile, for sensory analysis, it was used by 9-point hedonic scale, which involve aroma, texture, color, taste, aftertaste, and overall acceptability. For the results and discussion, the first analysis is moisture content, which honeydew melon powder is significantly lower than wheat flour. Flour that has moisture content less than 40% can inhibit microbial development and aid in storage. The moisture content in flour is also influenced by the drying matter content in it. Dry matter occur while drying time increase, the moisture content decreases. Both control and honeydew melon powder does not have moisture content more than 40%. For the next analysis is ash content, which is the amount of ash content in wheat flour is insignificantly different than honeydew melon powder. Ash content represents the total mineral content in foods such as phosphorus, potassium, and calcium, which minerals usually made up less than 7% in flour, but is crucial for physical, chemical, and nutritional properties of the wheat flour. It proves that the wheat flour has slightly higher mineral content compared to honeydew melon powder. And lastly, for protein content, the amount of protein in wheat flour should be around 11.7%. But the result obtained for protein for both wheat flour and honeydew melon powder is significantly different. This is because there are errors in the result, as the Jeddah machine did not generate results after being used once, and I wasn't able to repeat my analysis because I have to wait and alternate with lab practicals, hence insufficient of time. Protein contain gluten, which are gliadins and glutenin. Gliadins primarily contributed to dough viscosity and extensibility, while glutenin contributed to dough strength and elasticity. The higher the amount of protein, the higher the gluten level. So the next analysis for physical-chemical composition of wheat flour and honeydew melon powder is falling number, which no falling number for honeydew melon powder because it is unable to form slurry, but it forms a cakey and hard texture instead. Honeydew melon powder cannot form slurry because it does not contain starch and gluten, as well as no alpha amylase enzyme is present. The alpha amylase enzyme present in wheat flour is higher than honeydew melon powder, which aids in breaking the starch into simple sugar. The range of falling number for wheat flour is within 200 to 400 seconds. Okay, for next analysis is gluten washing. No gluten washing result for honeydew melon powder because gluten in honeydew melon powder contain no gluten, unlike wheat flour. Gluten ball of honeydew melon powder was completely dissolved in the water as it had no gluten forming protein. The amount of protein content in the wheat flour aids in forming the dough ball, as gluten forming protein increase the capacity to absorb water, which is important in baking quality. Gluten in baked dough forms a matrix which helps to hold in the melted fat, water, and sugar, which aids in cookies' shape and texture. For the next, physical-chemical composition of wheat flour and honeydew melon powder's result is oil absorption capacity and also water absorption capacity. For oil absorption capacity, honeydew melon powder contain low protein level, hence it absorbs oil significantly lower than wheat flour. The higher the protein content, the higher the amount of oil absorbed, which fat preserves taste and gives more palatable for mouth. The higher amount of oil absorption capacity in baked goods such as cookies will increase the hardness of cookies, whereas in bread, it helps in volumizing the loaf. This is because the amount of protein influences the oil absorption capacity, because non-polar amino acids composition could interact hydrophobically with lipid hydrocarbon. For water absorption capacity, the water absorption capacity in wheat flour is significantly higher than in honeydew melurine powder. The higher the amount of protein starch in the flour, the higher the amount of water absorbed in the starch. This is because proteins having both hydrophilic and hydrophobic parts, it can react with water in flour that aids in water absorption. The creation of intra and intermolecular disulfide bonds with the hydration quality of starch and gluten will influence the mobility of gliadins and glutenin during the making of the baked goods. The increasing of water absorption capacity, moisture content will also increase, which promotes of bacteria and affect the texture, also sensory properties of baked goods. The last two results for physical-chemical composition of wheat flour and honeydew melurine powder are estimation of total phenolic compound and also estimation of total antioxidant activity. Honeydew melurine powder contains significantly higher phenolic content than wheat flour. It is used to assess the level of phenolic compounds in each samples. Honeydew melurine powder contains higher total phenolic content, which is 4-hydroxybenzoic acid and vanillin, than wheat flour, as the bran fractions of wheat flour were removed during the milling process, which shows that wheat flour is a poor source of fiber. The TPC in bran is ranging from 1,258 to 3,157 milligram per gram. For total antioxidant activity, it shows that honeydew melurine powder contains significantly higher amount of total antioxidant activity than wheat flour. This is because high antioxidant correlated to high phenolic content. Phenolic compounds act as antioxidants by reacting with a variety of free radicals. Lily Yu reported that honeydew melurine contain bioactive substances such as phenolics, carotenes, and ascorbic acid. Increasing of antioxidant may also be attributed to the formation of dark color pigment in cookies due to Maillard reaction. Next is the texture analysis of the cookies. It shows that control cookies, which is 100% wheat flour, is significantly different with formulation 3 cookies. In table 5, it shows that F3 cookies had the highest result in all texture parameters, as it contained the highest amount of honeydew melurine powder substituted, which is 30%. The reduction of gluten in cookie dough resulted in the retardation of the forming of the gluten matrix, which contributed to the promotion in hardness of the cookies. For table 6, it shows a sensory analysis of the cookies, which control with 100% wheat flour had the highest score for aroma, taste, and aftertaste. Meanwhile, formulation 1 had the highest score for texture, color, and overall acceptability. It shows that the panel members preferred cookie with formulation 1, which is 10% substitution, as the best cookies compared to other formulations based on overall acceptability. The smell, taste, and aftertaste ratings for control cookies was scored highest by the panelists. Formulation 3 scored the lowest scores for sensory evaluation due to it contained the highest substitution of honeydew melurine powder with flour. To conclude, in order to partially replace wheat flour, a replacement flour made from powdered honeydew melurine was produced. Physical-chemical analysis including moisture content, ash content, protein content, falling number, gluten washing test, oil absorption, and water absorption capacity, total phenolic content were determined. Additionally, texture and sensory properties of cookies substituted with different percentage of honeydew melurine powder were analyzed. When compared to wheat flour, honeydew melurine powder had higher levels of phenolic compounds and antioxidant activity. Furthermore, in comparison to other formulations, cookies from formulation 3 had the highest value for all texture parameters and the lowest ratings for sensory qualities. Moreover, there is no appreciable changes in any sensory characteristics between the control and all formulation honeydew melurine cookies from the panelists. Therefore, substituting honeydew melurine powder for wheat flour in cookies might help reduce waste, allergic responses, boost phenolic content and total antioxidant, give variety in baked product manufacturing, and also benefit the environment. The recommendation for this study is future improvement to this study might include exploring more antioxidant assays in order to get overview of antioxidant properties of honeydew melurine powder in order to expand the study scope. So these are the references that I use in these slides. These are my Gantt chart. And that's all for me. Thank you.